Did you know that if you were to sit down and read the entire Harry Potter series from beginning to end, it would take you about 60 hours? If you sat down to read the Bible from beginning to end, it would only take you about 43. Interesting. What is up, guys? Hello, I hope you are doing well. I know that it's rough being quarantined at home, but luckily for us, the weather has been pretty nice, so I hope you've been taking advantage of that. I know I have. I've been trying to stay away from as many as people as possible, but today we got to take a lovely walk with my grandpa and my aunt, and we were social distancing, I promise, but we did all go on a walk together. I think what is going to happen today is I want to share a verse with you that I feel is really good for right now. All the stuff that we're dealing with. And I've heard some people say, well, I'm not really too worried about the virus. Well, even if you're not, there's something that you have dealt with in your life that causes you anxiety or fear. And I think right now we need some hope. So I want to share a verse with you that I think is, it's a wonderful verse. I think it's very pertinent. I think that's the right word, for the situation. I think it really goes along with what I'm wanting to get across today. So it's Psalm 34:4. I sought the Lord and he heard me and delivered me from all my fears. So I'm going to share one of my favorite stories from the Bible with you. And yeah, I think it goes along perfectly with that verse. So here we go. If I had to pick a favorite story from the Bible, I probably would have to pick the story about the fiery furnace. I don't know what it is about this story that I like so much, but I always have enjoyed it. And if you've watched the VeggieTales version with Rack, Shack, and Benny, you know what I'm talking about. Or if you've read the story in Daniel chapter 3, you also would know what I'm talking about. If not, don't worry, I'm going to give you a brief synopsis. Okay, so basically the Hebrew people were in captivity in Babylon, and the king of Babylon, his name was Okay, basically, let's just say he had a hard time spelling his name in kindergarten. He decided he was going to build a statue of himself because he really, really liked himself. I don't know. I don't get it. But anyway, he wanted to have this big statue made, and everyone in the kingdom was to bow down and worship this statue. Well, it looked like everyone was. But there were 3 guys that decided they weren't going to do that because they worshipped God. Their names were Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Well, everything was going good. They were worshiping God. They weren't doing as the king had commanded by worshiping the idol. And it was all well. Until there were some snitches that came along and told the king that these 3 men weren't bowing down and worshiping the idol, the statue. Well, the king got mad and had them come before him, and he says, I've heard that you aren't doing what has been commanded and that you aren't willing to worship the statue. They say, no, we worship the one true God. This makes the king mad, and he says, well, I'm going to throw you in the fiery furnace. And one of the guys stands up, and I think this is one of my favorite, probably my favorite part of this story. He says, even if you do this, even if you throw us in the fiery furnace, our God will deliver us. He will deliver us from your hand. The king gets mad and tells them, okay, you're going to go into the fiery furnace and we're going to heat it 7 times hotter than it's ever been heated before. Well, they put the 3 men in the furnace. The king thinks it's all over with, but he notices something. He can see them inside the furnace, in the fire, walking around. And then anybody who could do math would notice this as well. 3 men were put into the furnace, but when they were looking at the people inside the furnace, they noticed that there were 4. And they were confused. They were like, well, who is this 4th person that is just walking around inside there with them? And how are they walking around in there? So he calls them out. He's like, come out, come out. And they come out, but only 3 men come out. There's not 4. There's 3. And he was like, who was in there? And he realizes then that it's an angel of the Lord that's inside the furnace with them. Not a single hair had been burned. Their clothes hadn't been burned. There wasn't even the smell of smoke on them, because they were being protected in the midst of the flames. The king admits that the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego is the one true God, and they aren't punished. And as I said, the greatest part of that story is they had faith that they would be delivered from the furnace. I came to sit in the church for the last part of this because I'm not going to lie, I've missed this building. And while its doors are closed, we have to remember that the church doors may be closed, but the church was never this building. The church is us. And I think that's one reason why I do really, really love the story of the fiery furnace, because these 3 men were willing to give their lives to show who the one true God was. I'm gonna read this last passage from Daniel chapter 3. Then Nebuchadnezzar said, "Praise be to the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who has sent his angel and rescued his servants. They trusted in him and defied the king's command, and were willing to give up their lives rather than serve or worship any god except their own." What we need to take away from this is that they trusted God with every ounce of their being. They knew he was going to take care of them. They knew that even though they were put in a tough spot, that God had a plan. And this kind of faith that they had in God allowed them to have that spirit of power, the spirit that I talked about from 2 Timothy 1:7, and it comes from seeking God. The verse that I mentioned at the beginning, Psalm 34:4. I sought the Lord, and he answered me. He delivered me from all of my fears. Once we are focused on God and his word, or what he's saying to us through prayer, once we have developed the ability to listen, once we have asked, then we can understand the purpose that he has for us. So as this week continues, I think we all need to be praying, be asking God to not only build our faith in him, to strengthen us, but I think we need to be praying for guidance. How can I be a light to others during this time? Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were a light to the king. They showed him that they were going to be faithful to their God, even though it was going to be a hard time. So I want you all to think about this week. How can you show your faith during this rough patch? And continue to pray. And just remember that there's a reason for everything, and we will get through this. Hope you all have a good week. I will see you all Wednesday. Did you know that in the Bible there are 185 songs? Most of them are written in the book of Psalms, but not a single one of them, not one, is Living on a Prayer by Bon Jovi. I need a towel. Whew. There we go. Okay, we got it working. Heck yeah, I didn't think I was ever gonna get that stupid thing on there. Jeez, alright, let's go to McDonald's.